Morning, students. How are you? I hope you are fine. Today we have bead making. And what are the behavioral objectives? 1. Explain the term bead making. 2. State the techniques used in bead making. 3. Outline the various materials needed for bead making and their uses. Then describe method of production or uses of beads. 2. Bead is a small round object made from various materials that has holes where thread can pass through to hold them together. These beadwork are popular amongst the various ethnic groups in Nigeria like the Igbos, the Yorubas, and the Hausas and the Edos use Igbo for beads for various occasions. What are the techniques in bead making? We have the stringing, is where the fishing line is used for threading the beads. We have the sticking method, is where bead is stick to the cloth with adhesive or a sticking gum for it to stay. Then we have the stitches, where we use needle and stitching method, where we use needle and thread to stitch the bead to the cloth. Then we also have the sequence. The sequence is the same thing as sticking. Then the next one we are going to look into now is the various materials we can use for bead making. What are the materials? We know we can use the scissors for cutting the fishing line. The fishing line is a thread-like material that's used for the beads. Then we have the plier, which is used for pressing the stopper in order to hold the bead work in place. Then you have the hook and eye with which to hook it at the back of your neck. Then you have the stopper. The stopper is a small round object that is used to hold the hook and eye in place when you are working. If you look at the slide, you will see the fishing line, you can see the plier, you can equally see the hook and eye and the stopper. So these are the materials we need to work with in bead making. Now here you can just see different types of beads that are being produced. You even have the paper beads in the slide there. You have the simple beads you're in the slide there too. So in our next lesson, we are going to look into the method for bead making. This one we have done now, the first period, is to show you different types of beads. But the one we are going to concentrate on is just the simple beads which you can do for yourself, assuming you want to produce one by yourself. The other time we did it when the school is in session and a lot of the students enjoyed it. But this time around, from my steps in the method, you'll be able to know how to go about the beads. Those things are not difficult to get. It's a simple thing for you to get one and then start working with it on your own. So where you cannot, you don't understand how to do it, the best thing is to do what? To ask questions. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Carla Schaefer, Auntie's Beads Designer, and today we're going to do some basic bead stringing. I'm going to go over the tools and the products that we'll be using. We'll be using a 49 strand beading wire in a .018 diameter. We're going to be using 2x2 crimp beads. We're going to be using a toggle clasp and a crimping tool and a nipper tool. First thing you want to do is decide the pattern of the bracelet that you would like to bead, and I'm using a bead board with a bracelet channel, and I've laid my beads out into the bracelet channel just shy of 7.5 inches, because an average size bracelet is 7.5 inches, and you want to be sure and subtract the amount that you will need for the clasp and the crimp beads. So I've laid out my beads, and now I'm going to cut wire to about 3 inches or so longer than what I want the bracelet to be. So if it's going to be 7.5 inches, I'm going to cut about 10 inches of wire. First thing we're going to do is go ahead and put the one end of the clasp on the wire using the 2x2 crimp beads. This is a better view of how to crimp the crimp beads. String a crimp on the wire, Run the wire through the toggle, run it back through the crimp bead, take your crimp. Your crimp tool has two slots in it. It's got one at the base and then one at the tip. You want to use the one at the base first. So you lay the crimp bead in that slot and mash it till you get this little half moon shape, crescent shape. Then you turn it up sideways like this, put it in the front channel, mash it again till it folds it over. And then what I often do is we'll go back and mash it again with the very tip of the crimp tool just to make sure it's flat. This is how you crimp your bead. Next thing you're going to do is start stringing your beads on. So all you would do is just string the pattern that you've got laid out onto the wire. And the first couple of beads will cover your tail of the wire right below the crimp bead. And then you continue stringing until you get to the other end. Now that you've got most of the bracelet strung, you're just going to finish stringing the rest of the beads on, and then we're going to crimp the other end of the bracelet, and you'll have a completed bracelet. This is my last bead, and I'm going to lay it in the channel just to kind of check my measurement. I'm going to be 7.5 inches, maybe just a tad bit longer. So you can remove or add beads as needed. Next thing you'll do is you'll string on another crimp bead. Run it through the other end of the toggle. Run it back through the crimp and back through at least two beads, so you can hide your tail. Then do the same here. A neat little test is to kind of take the bracelet before you crimp the other end and kind of crinkle it up into your hand, and that makes sure that you have enough movement in your bracelet and it's not going to be too tight. And then you crimp. Again, you crimp in the channel closest to the handle first, then you turn it, put it in the end channel, and then mash it again on the end, and then trim the excess wire. And there you have your bracelet.